You're very welcome to episode 46 of the Scaling Your Business podcast. For this episode, we're staying over in the UK. We are with Dean Seddon, the CEO of Maverick. Dean, you're very welcome to the show.
Rian, thank you for having me.
Chuffed to have you. We were just talking about how the UK is open a little bit more than Ireland. You get to go to restaurants and pubs, but rather than stay on that, I want to go back a couple of chapters to the beginning. From my research, I can see you grew up around St. Helens, Warrington. I think it was a village in between. Am I right or wrong?
Yeah, I'm in Newtonley Willows, I was Newtonley Willows, which was halfway between. Wanted to be part of Warrington, but was actually part of St. Helens. Wanted to be more like Cheshire, but was actually ended up in Merseyside. So it was a really weird place because nobody quite knew where we were, and my dad was a miner. So it's funny because I'm now a southerner, smack down in Plymouth, and I just kind of, it was a really strange place because I grew up not knowing any of the sophistications of the real world because my dad, sounds awful saying this about my dad, but he's a miner, so none of my family were in business. It was really, really weird journey I've had. Like,
worked hard though, I'd say. Worked very hard.
Oh yeah, mate. A lot of them, I was going to swear then, but I don't know whether it's allowed.
No, I don't give a shit. Swear all you want.
Shit ton of mistakes. Absolute shit ton of them. But seem to have fared relatively well from it.
There's a couple of villages, towns, and words that you use that international audiences won't recognize. So to put them out of their misery, you said Merseyside. Are you a Liverpool or United fan? Because I notice where you are is kind of in the middle between both.
Oh, so I'd be more. It's red or blue either side, isn't it? Because you've got United and City, and you've got Liverpool and Everton. Although Everton are not what they used to be. I'd probably hedge towards Manchester United than Liverpool.
Fair. I'm not huge into football. I travel a lot, almost every Irish international away game. I go more for the beer than anything else. Anywho, early days growing up, what were some of your favorite memories?
Okay, so in high school, I had, the Young Enterprise. I don't know if they have it in Ireland.
Yeah. Yep.
So we were part of the Young Enterprise, and I set up a little business, and we had to raise share capital in the school. I was doing my GCSE business studies, and I think I didn't realize what I was doing at the time, but I decided that I was going to raise my shares. We started a school magazine, which is the classic thing. And I love this thing. It was like my best memory. The school actually renamed the sixth form building after me because of it. It's really funny. So basically what we did is we raised our share capital in our little GCSE business studies project and started a school magazine that we sold. I think it was 3 times a week we put it out, just a photocopied magazine, 20p thing. But then what we did is used the money off that to actually buy the shares in all the other young enterprises that were happening in the company, in the school. So effectively, our company in our little, I was like a year 9. So what's that? 13, 14.
Yeah.
Was a VC.
That's a crazy story. And the fact that we started this talking about your father being in the mines and there's not much business experience. I know. Like, where did that come from? Was there anyone that inspired you when you were younger that you looked up to?
So business wasn't as hip and trendy back then. Yeah. So now it's like a startup founder with no money and struggling to make it work is like celebrated. But back then it was like, it wasn't a thing. So I think the reason I went down that road was because I wanted to win. And I thought, well, if I own all the companies, I win whichever way I go. So that's why I did it. But if you want an embarrassing, who do I look up to? I'm a massive, and this is really silly, I'm a massive Star Trek fan, like huge. Yeah. And so, this is really embarrassing.
Are you a collectible?
Am I a collectible?
As in, like, do you collect Star Trek stuff? You're going to show me something, are you?
No, I don't collect anything whatsoever. I've got literally about 100 different collectible pieces in my office. Literally, you can't see it very well on the screen.
Yeah, I can see kind of the outline of it.
So my little hero, sadly and pathetically, and this might lose me some credibility in the business world, was actually Captain Kirk.
Fair. I have a colleague in the States that is a collectible of Star Trek as well, and his background is all that. Easy to spot and a great conversation starter if you can recognize Star Trek memorabilia, because 10 times out of 10 they just will talk for hours on the topic of Star Trek alone. But something I've found out about you is one of your favorite quotes is by a guy called Thomas Edison, and it's discontent is the first necessity of progress. Everyone interprets quotes differently. How do you interpret that?
I interpret that by, for anybody to take action, they have to reach a point where they're fed up of the current reality. Yeah.
Fair.
And that's informed the way I've done our business. It's informed the way I think. It's everybody thinks that selling the shiny car and look how amazing the car is. And I've always thought about this in a different way of going, somebody has to be sick of the car they've already got.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, and this was true of me so much, a lot of the time, we only take action, we only change something when our backs are up against the wall.
It's kind of in line with what I've said before to a friend. You're only going to take action when there's a fire underneath your ass, and you have a motive to do something. Yeah. Other than that, you can just sit there and kind of coast.
And if you, not to come back to Star Trek, because I could go on for hours. If you relate to that, who's my favorite character or who do I look up to? I know he's fictional, but if you look at Captain Kirk, he was always the underdog. He was always the one that was pressed and pushed and had to overcome something. And so, if anything, in life, I think you create your own narrative of how your life's going to, you're not in control of every circumstance, but you are in control of how you interpret it. And that Captain Kirk thing, that quote thing kind of makes me think, actually, I have to do well despite. It's that kind of underdog story narrative, but also that kind of, sometimes you have to fight for something, even if you're not happy with it, you have to fight to leave something, rather than, the pull to something is not as strong as the push away or the run. It's easier to run away from something to run to something.
I love the story of an underdog. Nothing gets me riled up more than the story of an underdog. A couple other things I found out you through research. I don't know if you still live there, but Cornwall was where you said you live.
Yeah.
Dog owner. You like barbecues. You went to your first baseball game in 2013, and you're a husband. So, what's one thing that you're into or curious about that not a lot of people know about you?
What am I curious about that not a lot of people know about me?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, massive car buff. Absolutely. Unfortunately, my climate change.
What's your dream car? Is that what you're going to say?
Yeah. The challenge I have is the cars I love would make me some kind of climate change hypocrite.
Okay. And what is, if you could have one car, what would that be? Climate aside.
It would be, the new GSs, the Mercedes GSs, the square utilitarian things, or there's there's a Russian 4x4 called a Commander. That's the English version of it. It's just the most huge, chunky, utilitarian off-road vehicles you can imagine.
Well, I've always had my eye on a Defender. If I was to get a second vehicle, it would be a Defender. I'd love that. I would. So you left the corporate world to start your own business. Previously worked for the likes of Iceland, Office Depot, and a couple of other companies. What had you leave the corporate world? I've never been
one to be able to follow. So when I work for people, they said, Dean, your revenue numbers are brilliant and what you do, but you're an absolute nightmare to work with. because I do things my own way. Yeah. So when you're working in a corporate environment where there's processes and it's like, one company brought me in, they said, this is where we want to get to. And some of our structure is actually causing us to not hit stuff. So I said, give me my own team, give me my crack team, we'll get there. We got there. We made $1 million profit in the first year from $1 million loss the year before. But I smashed a lot of heads doing it because I did it my own way. I'd bypass marketing department and get new stuff done. I literally just go my own way and do it. And so I was loved for it, but some people, it really pissed them off.
Yeah. That's a reoccurring trend on this podcast because 99% of the guests are entrepreneurs. And when I ask them that question, it's always around, don't take direction well, or almost similar to what you said. So you're not alone in that. And that's probably why you called your company name Maverick. Is that it?
Yeah. There's somebody once said to me years ago, there's the right way, which is the process and order and all of that kind of stuff. There's the wrong way, we'll never do that, and there's the other way, and I like to think I'm the other way.
So what is your favorite aspect of being an entrepreneur?
Well, I think you get to create something that's yours. Everybody says, oh no, everybody says, oh no, it's your baby, but eventually, Maverick is my baby. And I feel like it's a child and I'm seeing it go forward and the team are going forward. So I love that bit. But also, for me anyway, I have a belief about the way things are to be done and a way that can get things done. And so it's a cause for me as well. So it feels like a cause. And I get some degree of control. I know no entrepreneur really has control, but it feels like you're controlling things. You're setting the agenda. I love that ability to go, we're going to do something and we're going to throw everything at it.
You've done a video previously on talking about how you were terrified of the camera, of looking stupid. And you said it came from one of two places. One being you were, let's say, taken advantage of when you were younger. You talked about $250,000 or pound deal. And the second one was you felt like you were drifting / coasting. To get out of the kind of drifting phase, you ran for political office.
Yeah.
And that was a moment of change. I want to go back to the first one, the taking advantage of. It sounds like you had your identity attached to the money you made.
Yeah, absolutely.
What would you say to anyone who's in the same pair of shoes you were in all those years ago?
So when I did the politics thing, I think that's when it really knocked it out of me properly. Because if you want to be seen as a success and you go, actually, you're making the mistakes and success is attached to money and all of this stuff, what you end up doing is you're projecting your own insecurity on external people. So you're going, I need to have money to show people I'm a success. Well, you obviously don't believe you're a success yourself because people don't care. And where I realized this was when I was running for politics. And it was like, you do realize, generally speaking, when you run for election, 1/3 of the people will vote for you because of the color of your election ticket.
Wow.
1/3 of you, red, blue, yellow, green, whatever it is, blue or red, Labour or Conservative in the UK. So 1/3 of people are going to vote for you because you're blue. 1/3 of them are going to hate you because they're red. Yeah. And some people in the middle won't care or will decide to like you for you. And I'm like, okay. And suddenly I realized, I don't know what it was. I don't need the whole world to like me. I just need the people who I need to like me. So think about it as a business. Most businesses spend all of their time trying to convince the world that they're good and they should like them. But to actually have a viable business, you probably need, and there's a brilliant book on this called, I think it's called Superfans. You probably need 1,000 diehard people to actually really love you. 1,000 diehard people. So you're basically trying to convince 7 billion people to not hate you. And in that process, helping 1,000 people not love you. So I just went, let's just sod this. If 1,000 people like what we do, we've got a solid business. So I was just like, okay, fine. Don't get me wrong. When we get some kind of email from somebody who doesn't like us or decides that we're doing it the wrong way, and they give us war and peace about why we should do it differently, it still cuts. But I'm like, I can't be slowed down by people who are never going to buy from me anyway.
That's true. In your another video, or maybe the end of that video that I'm referencing, you said your goal became to, at one point, your goal became to avoid going back to where you were.
Yeah.
How did you push through that? What would that be considered as? How did you push through that mental soundtrack you had back playing in your head?
This is tough questions. Do you know what? A lot of the times these things just kind of come on us gradually. But I was like, there's a few times in my life where I've given myself an ultimatum. One of them, and this sounds really bad, but it was a very difficult time, really tough. And I turned around to myself and said, Dean, if you don't turn this around, you're going to be stacking shelves. Now, there's nothing wrong with stacking shelves, but as an entrepreneur who's master of their own destiny and, you know, all of that stuff and has a cause to fight, I put myself on that ultimatum. And again, coming back to that quote about discontent, if I don't want that, I motivated myself to do something differently. And so I sometimes give myself these crazy ultimatums to say, if I don't do this, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, and it can be used as a fire underneath your ass to kind of get you to move towards that. But the reason why I brought up that was because there's been times throughout my early 20s where I've said to myself, the whole objective of what you're doing, Rian, is to make sure that you don't go back to what life was like when you were, 18, 19, 20, maybe even 22, up until 24. My bank balance was probably minus. Now, I didn't have much outgoings or anything, but since 24 to probably only 6 to 8 months ago when I started talking to a counselor, well, my goal was to make sure just don't go into the corporate world. Don't go back to the point where you're living off your overdraft. And it's like, well, if your mental space is in the past, that surely can't be good. So it resonated a lot with me when you had said at one particular time your goal was to avoid going back to where you were. And for me, chatting to people and then experiencing life experiences, being around people who think and act differently, that kind of got me out of that. And I'm like, well, yeah, I don't really care. And now I have a short, medium, and long-term direction and goal and fire to bring me to that, and working on things you enjoy. And it's kind of personal curiosity. I wanted, because I saw a lot of myself when you said that.
I think so. Where I am today is the process of eliminating what I didn't want. And so I didn't want to be in a corporate world. I didn't want to have to do things in a particular way. And so I thought, well, if I don't embrace the way I want to do things, I'm going to have to do one of those things or some of those things. So for an example, the suit, the way I present things, the way I do stuff, I started to list out all the stuff about corporate reports and certain processes and things that I know I'm not good at. But if I wanted to be the top of my game and do it in the corporate world, where most frankly, that's where you either run your own business, you're a salesperson, or you're in the corporate world. Yeah. Yep. And if I wanted to be and do things and help people change the way they think about growing and scaling businesses, and I've picked some areas to do it, I either went into the corporate world, yeah, or did things in a way where I was respected in the corporate way, or I went the total opposite way and went my way and got them to like my way. And the put again, we come back to that push of I don't want to do that, so I had to embrace this. And sometimes I feel uncomfortable because I think maybe I'm going too far sometimes. And then we've only recently people have started messaging and saying things like, your no nonsense way of putting it just cuts through the corporate crap. And one person said, what you said in half an hour, I've got in a strategy report that's 300 pages, and nobody
must make you feel
understands.
good though.
Yeah, and that's like, okay, now I get it. But the scary thing is, you have to run away from all of that stuff and say, if that's not me, I have to do something different. But that can feel very lonely for quite a while.
Yeah.
And very like the wrong choice.
Yeah, because you're a minority compared to the majority.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's move on to a lighter topic. You've traveled a lot with work. I know you've worked over in the States. Idaho is one of the places you've worked. What's your favorite city? Doesn't have to be in the States, worldwide.
My favorite city in the whole world.
Yeah.
Miami.
Okay. Why Miami?
I just love the very relaxed nature of it. It's got the mix of South America and mainstream America. The weather's very good. I don't do well with the cold. And I love that mix of beach and city. And it's got a very kind of more relaxed culture. And I love it.
Is that why you're living in Cornwall? Because life down there seems to be pretty good compared to up north.
The reason I'm still here, because I had a choice a few years ago to relocate back to a major city or north. The reason I'm still here is because it's probably one of the warmest places in the UK.
Yeah.
So.
No, that makes perfect sense. Weather is a big thing for me as well. But I say that and I'm still living in Dublin, Ireland, and it's not the sunniest place in the world, but it's better than the west coast of Ireland, where the Atlantic Sea smacks against the coast. You talk a lot about content. Mm-hmm. Recent LinkedIn posters around good content. I think there's a lack of good content out there. And in your eyes, what makes good content?
It depends what you want to get from it. So for an example, I put stuff out that tries to get people to think and tries to get people to see my way of thinking. So if I can get people to see my way of thinking, that's good content for me. Yeah. So I talk about the influencer paradox, that people chase and follow what will get them likes and views. And the problem with that is you end up building something, you follow the crowd. So what appeals to the crowd? And actually, this is a problem in politics. This isn't just about content. This is about life. There's two ways to do things. There's get people to think your way, yeah, and show people a different way and your take on the world, and and get people to engage with that. Or there's the other side of this of you just follow where the interest is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Instagram example, yeah, I'll go make an Instagram account about palm trees. I'll get 1,000 followers and I'll keep building it up, and I'll be like the palm tree person. But if I don't care about palm trees, and I can't sell, I'm not going to sell anything other than palm trees, seeds for palm trees, coconuts or whatever. It's no interest to me. So yeah. I'm very much like, I'm a firm believer in, you've got a cause, go find it and then bring the world your way if you can.
I love that because, and it's come up on a recent podcast, maybe 1 or 2 episodes ago, you touched on likes, engagement, and don't let that be a measure of what motivates you to post content. Someone said something on a previous podcast and it hit me in the head. It was, when you're starting a podcast, don't focus on the number of downloads as your measurement of success. Focus on the new relationships you're building as your measurement of success. So at the end of the 6 months, if you recorded a daily podcast, you formed I don't know, I'm not great at maths, like 80 new relationships compared to X amount of downloads. Because if you're focused on the downloads, you'll give up pretty fast. But if you're focused on all the, you know, acquaintance like relationships, you'll continue to push yourself forward. And you seem to be aligned with that thought in terms of creating content, that the goal should not be likes.
No. I mean, the problem with social media is you need the likes and the comments for reach.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't follow that. So you can see people, for example, posting funny videos and they get thousands of followers, but then when they try and promote their business, it's like nothing. I've tried to balance that and go, I want to show my version of how things should be done. And that's the path I'm going to follow. And, you know, I took a pot shot at crypto today because I get annoyed with it. Yeah. And I think to some degree that whole world's going to get sorted out. Unpopular opinion, because crypto is going to change the world. You know, I find life always finds its balance. It always finds its balance, and everything, you know, remember when the book was over? Remember hard copy books was over?
Yeah.
And now everybody's like, I really want to read. I find it better to read a real book. So I think everything finds a balance. But for me, it's about, what do you want to say? Why do you want to say it? And build the people around you who agree and believe in what you're trying to do. So I'm absolutely on the same page with you. Yes, I'd love to have 1 million people engage with me, absolutely. But if I have to fake me to get the 1 million people, then it isn't worth it.
I want to talk on email marketing. Before we get to that, you sparked a thought in my head. The posts that frustrate me most are the ones that said your third at will bring you on a trip to so and so. And I'm thinking, going, no, all that person is doing, the creator of that account, is trying to get as many people to comment on it, so it drives up engagement and makes the post goes viral. But there's no value add in it. So, like, what's the end goal of it? Just to say that you got a post that had 2 million people view it, because you can't do anything with it.
I know why there is. There's the social proof element of that. So if you want to get social proof of you, then I know it's really shallow, but it does work. You can, you know, if you go do a viral post, you get 2 million views, and you can do that consistently, or to some degree, you will grow a following of people who love your 2 million view style posts, and then you can leverage that. So who was the guys who basically stole all the memes that people had made? Do you remember that? There was a guy who, I can't remember his name.
What social platform was it on?
Fuck Jerry, they're called.
Okay.
Yeah. So they basically stole other people's memes, leveraged the hell out of them on Instagram, I think, and Facebook. Tons and tons of followers. And then off the back of doing all of that, created their own content agency, right? Saying, look how cool we are because we've had this many views and this many views and this many views. So they built a business to sell that to other people. I can understand that business. Yeah. But if you're just doing it, I can understand the social proof element. I can understand the gaming of the algorithm element. But if you're doing it just to satisfy yourself, you know, don't deceive yourself. It's all about, did the right people engage with it? If they didn't, it's a waste of time. So there's two elements of it. There's the social proof, like Fuck Jerry, where they're a controversial group. They were behind the Fire Festival, but that's what they did effectively. They built this social proof, and that's how Fire Festival managed to leverage it, because look how big and influential we are. So maybe not a great example of social proof, or maybe it is, I don't know. The other side is gaming the algorithms.
If it achieved their goal, then it's a great example.
Yeah.
Biggest mistake you see people make when it comes to email marketing?
There's lots. One is not knowing how to convince people to respond. So they send stuff that doesn't elicit a response.
Can you give me an example of what that might look like?
So I get lots of them cold email where it's basically, hey, do you need SEO? And, you know, we do this. There's nowhere in it is the striking up of a conversation.
Yeah. So like a next step.
Yeah. So what is it? So what do you want from this? Or I see the other ones where it's just blasting information and do you want to call, but not really telling people any value as to why they need the call.
You did a video a while ago, and the video was titled "Why Planning is Useless." It's a bold statement. Was that a catchy title, or was there a reason why you think planning is useless?
So I'm an iterator rather than a planner. So the problem with planning is it's all theory. It's all theory. So you can have a rough guide of this is where we want to go and this is where we get to, but as soon as you start to implement that plan, it bears no resemblance to reality. You do a marketing campaign and you write the campaign plan, you write the concept and everything, and all the way through that creative process, there's deviations and changes. It's anything, building a business, other than building a building, all plans change on process. And in fact, even building plans change on process. Yeah.
Yeah.
So people, I know people who've got, we've got this 3-year plan and they're stuck because the plan isn't working, but they won't deviate from the plan. So I'm an iterator. So I go, this is broadly what we want to achieve. What's our first milestone? And then how do we get there? How do we get there? So I'm not a planner. I've got a trajectory and I know what the trajectory is. But as for a plan, sometimes iterators cause more problems. I was speaking to our graphic designer, and our website is always in a constant state of update because we test new messages and check them all out. So it's constantly changing, rather than some people will plan for 12 months, build something, then find out it doesn't work and then go back to the drawing board.
I can point to many examples of that. And your website is a slick website. You have achieved a lot to date in your career. What continues to drive you?
I'm probably slightly megalomaniac in that I want to change the world. No, I guess, okay. So when I was growing up, I'll get the violin out. My parents were brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But there was nobody in my family who'd run a business. When I went through that process, I found it really hard. I went to a government organization to get a startup grant at the time, and it was £1,000, and that was still not a lot of money back then. And I went through this whole process with people, ex-bank managers, trying to get my hands on this £1,000. And I'm like, eventually I gave up because there was more work to get £1,000. I could probably work harder to get £1,000 than tick their boxes to get the £1,000. And I've met lots of businesses and lots of people who could do a lot better if they had their business or understood how to promote their business better. And I really believe this. The only way we can actually change our economy as a country and as a world is actually to create more things that people want and need. You can't go, this is political now, sorry. There's only so much that the government can do. We have to help. We have to create things. We have to create jobs. And so my big thing that I want to do, and I'm just debating when I would do it, I want to create an aspect of our business which is some kind of micro VC. Yeah. So I don't know how this works yet, but whereby somebody who's got a business idea, it's not going to be the next unicorn, right? So it's not going to be like that, but it might be something that takes 4 or 5 people and creates 4 or 5 jobs. Yeah, because 99% of all of the employment in this country is with small businesses.
Yeah.
So I go, well, hang on a minute. Could we create a micro VC where it's not primarily motivated about profit? It is a little bit, but it's not profit in the sense of, it wants to make $1 billion profit. It's actually about employment. So it's almost like a government agency without the bureaucracy.
Wow.
Now, that might be like investing £2,500 in one business. It might be £500. We do this already in Pakistan and India. So we lend money to people in India and Pakistan as to start a business, or maybe their machines broke down, to repair it. And when they repay it, we lend it back out to somebody else. So the money's constantly being recycled, helping people in Pakistan and India. But I'd love to do something like in the UK, where it makes a little bit. So we just reinvest there's a little bit of interest, which goes to charity, goes to a charity. But we actually recycle that same money to other people who, one guy needed a bike to do his deliveries.
Yeah.
So we helped him buy a secondhand bike in India. Yeah. So, and then they pay it back, and it goes, actually, some woman needed a donkey. Yeah. So we got,
wow.
So that I really love that idea. And it's not huge amounts of money because it's developing countries. But imagine if we could do something like that here.
I was listening to a podcast the other day, and it was around billionaires, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, and it was some people wanting the billionaires, their companies, to be kind of taken control of, so that you can only grow to a certain extent, so that you can't kind of just dominate everything. And then someone else had the other argument of, well, if you do that, you're not stimulating the Elon Musks, the Bill Gates, the Jeff Bezos of the world, and those people, the disruptors, the different kind of people, they're what we need to create new things to move society forward. So it was an argument of, do you put a cap on and control, or do you let them run free so that we can continue to evolve and change?
So I think it's tricky if you try and impose a cap, because it will stifle innovation, because the next multi-billion-dollar idea that comes out, nobody will have the incentive to actually make it happen. But here's another thought. Jeff Bezos, he's a billionaire. But this billionaire phrase is bandied round, but how much of his billionaire wealth is stock versus actual money?
Oh, 99%.
Yeah. So when you look at it, and I remember Lord Sugar was on an interview, and he said he's not a billionaire, I don't think, or if he is, he's at the low end of the billionaires club, if he is. And somebody asked him, how much money could you lay your hands on right now? And he said, in cash, and he said about 10 million quid. Right? So you look at it and you go, I'm not sure it makes any difference whatsoever if you break these billion-pound companies up at all. I'm not sure it makes any difference, because the reality is, it's not tons, billions and billions of pounds being siphoned into one person, because the wealth is made. It's paper wealth. Most of it is paper wealth. Now, if he sells up all of his Amazon shares, right? He'll cash in hugely, but he's not sucked profits from Amazon to make himself rich. He's not Philip Green, where he takes £1 billion out of his company and then it goes bust 10 years later. Yeah. He's just living off the profits, a salary, and he's got share wealth.
Yep.
So if you break it up, I don't think it's going to make any difference.
And if he wanted to pull any of his shares out, there's things in place, like he has to serve 6 months or wait for it to hit a certain market cap, or give notice. So it's not an immediate, like, I'm pulling today and I get the cash today.
Yeah. And all of that share wealth is invented. It's like a secondary, everything in this world, most things in this world are built, a value is built on delivering something people pay for. Yeah. So the Amazon share value, his wealth, is actually a byproduct. Most of it is a byproduct of an actual business doing a service for customers.
Yeah.
So, if you break that company up, that wealth disappears as well.
True. We're getting near the end. A couple more questions for you. Your whole business is around helping others get better in terms of marketing, social selling, mentorship, that kind of thing. Who do you look to for mentorship? Is there someone, or do you read books, listen to podcasts, a combination of all three?
I am constantly reading, looking at stuff, thinking about stuff. I think biggest thought process, biggest eye opener for me was Elon Musk over how he re-engineered SpaceX and going, we've got to build a rocket cheaper than NASA, and everybody tell him it can't be done. And he just looked at it, measured it out. So I study a lot of stuff. I watch what other people are doing and see is there anything I don't know. So I'm always aware there's stuff I don't know. And so I'm always looking for how that slots in and explores things. But there's nobody specifically. I just look at lots of different people and lots of different things.
Yeah. Okay. 2 final questions. If your house, apartment where you live was burning down, all your loved ones, animals, kids, wife, everything are all safe, what one item would you save if you could only save one?
I've got some things. My mum died in 2019, and I've got some things that I'd like to keep of hers that she left for me.
Nice.
And my granddad fought in World War II, so maybe I can have multiple things. And he left me his medals, so I've still got his medals.
Put it all in one box, and you can take that box with you as a single item.
The box with everything in. Can I have the box with everything in?
I'd like you to imagine it's the end of the decade, so it's 2030, and we're looking back on the last 9 to 10 years. You can answer this personally or professionally, but what would you like to be looking back on?
2030.
Yeah.
Okay, so 2030, I am living in Miami, and Maverick's hit its goal of helping 1 million businesses grow.
Dean, I've had a great pleasure chatting to you for the last 45, 50 minutes. I hope that in 2030 you're living in Miami and that Maverick has hit his goal. But for now, thank you for being my guest today.
Thank you for having me.